Hello, guys. Hi. Good morning. New topic today, Adventism from Freemason to Anti-Mason. I'm on partial shadow ban, hard to find my videos, can never find the first three. So if you're looking for them, go to vincentbrunoshadowban.blogspot.com. The title or the topic is Adventism from Freemason to Anti-Mason. You can learn more about that by going to butharmlessasdoves.blogspot.com. It's in the bottom of the screen and in the description box. And if you're an ex-Seventh-day Adventist or any kind of ex-Adventist or interested in Adventism and Freemasonry and would like to talk, vincent.bruno.1229@gmail.com. It's at the bottom of the screen and in the description box. Okay, so we're reading a book called Seventh-day Adventism Renounced. So this is an ex-Seventh-day Adventist. And let's see what his name was. Reverend C.D.M. Canwright, Otsego, Michigan. It was published in 1888. Okay, so let's start. Introduction. Hold on. Hold on. I just need to get something in order here. Okay. Being profoundly convinced that Seventh-day Adventism is a system of error, I feel it my duty to publish what I know of it. I do it in fear of God, knowing the sorrow it has brought to my heart and to thousands. I must warn others against it. I do not question the honesty of the Adventists, but that does not sanctify their errors. I have had to speak plainly, but I trust kindly. To avoid writing a large book, I have had to treat each subject briefly and leave many untouched. I have taken up a few of the main pillars of that faith. If these fall from, the whole system must go down. I have put the book in this cheap form that it may have a wide reading. The Adventists, instead of answering my arguments, have attacked me personally. This has compelled me to defend myself. When Paul was attacked, he defended himself by recounting what he had done. He says, "Ye have compelled me, for I ought to have commended of you. I have done as he said." The extent of the Seventh-day Adventist work, few are aware of how extensive this work is becoming. Their yearbook for 1888 shows 409 members. 889 churches, 25,841 members, tithe 192,720 yearly. Last year, they gained 30 ministers, 91 churches, and 2,270 members. They have churches in nearly all the states and territories in Canada, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Switzerland, England, Australia, New Zealand, Pacific Islands, Central America, South America, Africa, Germany, Russia, etc. They have 6 printing houses, large and well equipped, where they publish about 20 periodicals and a list of nearly 200 books and tracts. By means of their tract societies, these works are distributed widely over the earth. Last year, they sent out nearly 200,000 worth. They have 2 colleagues and 1 academy, and interest and intense zeal to propagate their doctrine and make proselytes to their church is the one leading passion of them all. Hence, in proportion to their numbers, they do a large amount of work. What will be their end? In 1856, 32-year-old Miss White prophesied that some there would live till Jesus came. The Testimonies prophesied, volume 2, page 132. So they argue that those who saw the stars fall in 1833, 55 years ago, will live to the end. When these limits are passed, all must know that they have been deceived. Then will come doubt, discouragement, division, apostasies, and ruin to the soul. This end is inevitable. The wider their influence now, the more terrible the disaster. These wild, enthusiastic, fanatical moves, which end in failure, are the delight of Satan as they bring disgrace upon the cause of Christ and end in infidelity. What such will be the end of Adventism, I have not a doubt, but it will take another generation to see it. How shall we meet it? Meet in squarely and quickly as soon as it enters a place. Preach on it, enlighten the people, give them reading matters against it, visit those being led away, and labor with them personally. 9 out of 10 people could be saved from that error if this were done in time. Very generally, ministers make the mistake of waiting till the Adventists have worked weeks before they say anything. Then it is too late. I always observe when where ministers and members unite right on the start and work against it publicly and privately, we could do but little. If it once gets a foothold, you will have a thorn in the flesh for years to come. The author has plainly stated his views on the Sabbath, the law, and other subjects discussed in this book. He does not expect all his readers to agree with him on all points, but he asks them to candidly weigh the argument advanced. Lack of education and talent among the Adventist leaders. The men whom God has chosen to lead out of the great religious movements of the past have, with little exception, been men of high education, refinement, and great talents. Moses, the founder of Judaism, was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians and was mighty in words and deeds. Nehemiah, who restored Jerusalem after captivity, was a cupbearer to the king. So Daniel, the great prophet, had knowledge and skill in all the learnings and the wisdom. He was prime minister of a mighty empire for many years. Paul was so renowned for his learning that the king said to him, "Much learning doth make thee mad." He did for Christianity 10 times more than all the other apostles together. It is to him and not to other apostles that the Gentile world is indebted for Christianity. Then the 12, though uneducated, had the advantage over all other reformers that they were taught directly by the Son of God and could work miracles. St. Augustine, the father of Christian theology, to whom the church owes almost all as much as to Paul, was brightly educated. As is well known that Luther was a thorough scholar, educated in the best schools of his day, and filed a professor's chair in a university. So Calvin and Melanchthon were both profound scholars, occupying professor chairs in halls of learning. Zwingle, the great Swiss reformer, was celebrated for his learning and scholarship. Wycliffe, the morning star of the Reformation, was a graduate of Old Oxford, England, and a doctor of divinity. Cranmer, the great English reformer, was a graduate, a doctor of divinity, archbishop, and regent of the kingdom. Wesley, the father of Methodism, was a graduate of Oxford, a man of vast reading, and author and editor of commentaries, grammars, dictionaries, etc. Now look at the founders of our heretical sects. Joanne South Scott was wholly illiterate, a mere washerwoman. Anne Lee, the foundress of the Shakers, received no education, worked in a cotton factory, and was cook in a hospital. Joseph Smith, the founder of Mormonism, received no education, and Brigham Young very little. The Fox girls, with whom modern spiritualism originated, were of the same class. No one of these persons were of influence in the world outside of their own deluded followers. Hold on. Now look at the founders of our heretical. How is it with the Adventist leaders? How was it with? Sorry. I drank some coffee. Let me see if I. No. Some coffee went down.
You want a cigarette?
No. There's some coffee went. Some coffee went down the wrong tube. Oh, I can't read. Hold on. How is... Wow, I still can't read. How is it... Wow. Sorry about this, guys. Okay. While I'm coughing, let's watch the video.
This is Glenn Moore of Jubilee Countdown Ministries. I've been trying to put off making a presentation like I'm going to give now. It will be in 3 parts. It is called The Occult Freemasonic Origins of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. The reason I said that I would like to put this off is because, well, I'm a former Seventh-day Adventist myself. When I was a child, I asked my Baptist minister about some issues from the Bible, and, well, he just didn't give a good enough answer, and I found that the Adventist had given a better answer. And because I was a truth seeker then, as I am now, I became a Seventh-day Adventist. And I was a Seventh-day Adventist for over about 20 years, from about 1980 to 2001. Now, let me just come right out and say right here and now that I'm not here to condemn. I'm not here to say that everything the Adventists are doing is wrong, or their teachings. Believe it or not, they have a lot of fine teachings that are biblical. There are other teachings which I believe are in error. However, it would be very difficult to cover all these issues in a brief presentation. The main issue that we need to deal with is the fact that, well, let's just face it, whenever people begin to get close to the truth, it seems like at every opportunity Satan comes and creates a counterfeit. In Daniel chapter 2, the prophet Daniel told Nebuchadnezzar that he was the head of gold, but that his nation would soon fall and be replaced by others until the kingdom of Yahweh is set up, an everlasting kingdom. However, he wasn't happy with that, so in the next chapter, some years later, Nebuchadnezzar decided to build his statue of gold, solid gold, to show that his kingdom would be everlasting. Well, we know how the story ended. The 3 Hebrew worthies were thrown into the great fire, but they didn't die. Well, it seems to be repeated throughout history. For example, during the Reformation era, people began to separate from the Catholic Church because they began to see that it was not living in accordance with Scripture. What did they do? They created a counter-reformation. Every time there's been a revival, it seems, there's been a counter-revival. Throughout the United States, in the 1700s and early 1800s, there was a spirit of revival. And in the 1800s, we had what was called the Second Great Awakening. Now, there were many different denominations involved with this Great Awakening, but basically it amounted to people attending camp meetings and listening to preachers to bring them messages of revival and restoration. Methodist, Presbyterian, Baptist, and on and on and on. Among them were Church of Christ, Christian Church, and the Mormons, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Well, there was also one more group that came out of that revival era, the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Now, I'm not in a position to talk about some of those other denominations, but I do know one bit of information that many people are not aware of, and that is the Freemasonic origins of the leadership of many of those groups, particularly the Mormons, the Jehovah's Witnesses, and the Christian Science. But me, as a Seventh-day Adventist for so many years, I didn't even realize. But yes, even Adventism has origins that are based upon Freemasonry. Now, William Miller himself, the one who started the Millerite movement, was a Freemason. He did resign from Freemasonry just before beginning his ministry. However, nevertheless, he was a Freemason. Okay, and some people say, well, that's fine, but the Adventists are a different group. Yes, they're a different group, but they came out of the same group. Amazingly, many of the founding fathers of the Seventh-day Adventist Church were, well, it would seem, Freemasons and members of other secret societies. And do you mean including Ellen White? Well, yes, including Ellen White. Now, I'm going to present some things here. It's going to be very difficult for Adventists to take in. I'm going to ask them to bear with me through parts 1 and 2 as we go through the information. There are other people who are on the internet that are also publishing similar information. I don't necessarily agree with all of what they believe. In part 3, I'm going to tie it all together, and I'm going to try, hopefully, to help you see the false from the true, because even though Adventism is full of errors, it also has some interesting truths, and surprisingly, it has some errors that are exactly flipped, the opposite of the truth. Well, this is something that a lot of people don't understand about these secret societies. In order to deceive people, not only do they try to get very close to the truth in certain areas, but other areas they try to flip the truth so that it's the exact 180-degree polar opposite of what the true teaching should be based on Scripture. Now, you wouldn't know that if you didn't know the Scripture and also history. You have to study history if you're going to find out the truth about anything. And when I say study history, I'm not talking about studying some history book that you got in high school or even college. I'm talking about doing historical research to find out what the truth of the matter really is. And you don't always go by what one person says or another person says, but you take all the evidence that's presented there and line it all up, and then you find the truth. Similar to how we should be studying the Bible. We should be looking at all of the evidence and lining it all up to find the truth. But without the historical background, we'll never find the truth about anything. Once we've done our homework, we're going to find out that not only is Adventism confused in many areas, but a big part of Christianity as well, a big part of this world system that we live in. The whole world is deceived, friends. And it's like Baskin Robbins' 32 flavors of deception. Which one do you want? Do you like chocolate? Do you like vanilla? How about Rocky Road? How about sherbet? That is what we're seeing in denominationalism, including Adventism, including Jehovah's Witness, including all these other different groups, and Catholicism, of course, the main one. I'm going to begin the presentation. Look at it. You decide for yourself what the truth is. Part 1, Part 2. Look at it all. I don't know if you're an Adventist or not. It doesn't really matter. I'm asking you to suspend your judgment till we get to Part 3. Can you do that? Okay, here we go.
Okay, I've stopped coughing so I can read. This is going to take us forever to get through because how is it with the leaders of Adventism? William Miller, the founder of the party, was reared in the backwoods in poverty and received only the poor advantages of a common district school. Except some general reading, this was the extent of his education. Nearly all of the prominent leaders of the Seventh-day Adventist Party only secured sufficient education to teach a common district school. He was no student of books. In all my travels with him, I seldom saw him read half an hour in any book. Of the languages or the sciences, he knew nothing. Mr. White received no school education except a few weeks when a child. Oh, Miss White received no school education except a few weeks when a child. She, like Joanne South Scott and Anne Lee and Joseph Smith, is wholly illiterate, not knowing the simplest rules of grammar. Not one of the leading men in that work ever graduated from college or university, and some of the most prominent ones are illiterate as Miss White herself. L.J.N. Andrews, Elder Smith, and one or two more have, by diligent study and reading out of school, became well-informed men in their line. Elder G.L. Butler, the present leader of the body, has only a common school education and is unacquainted with the languages of science and is very narrow and bigoted in his views. Poorly prepared to lead out of the Great Reformation. Wait, hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Not poorly prepared to lead out in a great reformation in this educated age. Not a man among them has now or ever had a particle of influence in the world or any office or responsible position in state or nation. How different from the great reformers of the past, but with who often had extensive influence for good, not only with the masses, but with the great men and king of earth. Hence, from the whatever side we view Adventism, it is none of the marks of genuine reformation sent of God to bless the world. On the conditions of the things among the first Adventists, Elder A. Phelps, Lima, New York, for years editor of the Bible Banner, one of their papers says, still another minister who for years labored among the Adventists thinks my entire statement ought to be published in many papers because it is a true picture. He adds, my experience has been similar to yours. He regrets the same thing that I deplore, and the necessity which drove him out, as many others have been, to work on other lines and with another denomination. I can count up at least a dozen ministers, including some of the best I ever knew, who are now preaching outside the Adventist ranks. There must be some serious reason for this state of things. What is it? I watched and waited, and working with patience, meekness, and loyalty, and hearty cooperation, and with earnest desire to see such unity, enterprise, breadth, and moral power as ought to be characterized as scriptural and heaven-inspired movement. How slowly and reluctantly I yielded to the conviction, forced by sad facts and illustrations that I had not even dared to detail, that I was only throwing away my life in stemming such waves of discord, indolence, looseness, narrowness, dogmatism, and spiritual death as I could not overcome. Reader, if you are still outside of the spiritual Babylon, take warning from those who have been through the mill and stay out. Okay. Okay. Wait, hold on one second. Okay. Let's watch the show.
It aimed at that time directly at the constellation of Orion, wherein resides what Egyptians believed to be the dwelling place of God, and where his offspring, the pharaohs, come from. It has been shown that the shaft leading from the king's chamber to the outside would have in 2450 BC been aimed dead center at Orion's belt. You see, the pyramids at Giza are an exact blueprint reflecting the constellation of Orion, the place they believe God's offspring would come from. These unretouched, untweaked satellite photographs show the startling precision and care in which the ancients took to forever signify the stars. Here, they reflected on the earth the heavenly constellations. They were trying to build heaven on earth. Alpha Draconis, the then polar star, actually shone directly down the descending passage at its lower culmination. Now, Draconis is the dragon. Pharaoh was trying to have all of his bases covered when he died, so that if the dragon Satan were the savior, the one who won victory, he would be ready and be aimed at this constellation. But if the powerful creator God, as shown in Orion, was the winner of the battle for souls, that his soul might go there upon burial.
Again, we have animation going from Earth through the Orion Nebula to the actual throne of God itself.
Here we go. As we are leaving the Earth here, we see the sun there to our right, and of course we'll pass the Earth. Now approaching the sun, and you can see the Orion Nebula there past the sun. As we pass the sun, we're probably going over 100 times the speed of light, of course, in this animation. And approaching the Orion Nebula itself, of course, in order for this to be actual real time, the individual stars of the Orion Nebula will be passing at different times because they're at different distances from the Earth. But it's actually in the sword of Orion, the star of the sword of Orion, that is the Orion Nebula. We're approaching it here, coming closer, coming closer. The Orion Nebula is 1,500 light years from the Earth. That cavern that we were just talking about is actually 100 light years wide. You go into the center of that cavern. We're circling around the trapezium cluster here. This is actually something you can see with a home telescope if you're interested in looking at it. You won't see the nebulosity, but you will see the trapezium. Going through the trapezium, through the continuing past the trapezium. This is, of course, animation depicting what it might look like, of course, as we come to the area that, as Christians, we would call heaven, to the throne, the city of the New Jerusalem.
There was another sun, a hidden sun, and it became popular to teach that a certain star far off, known as the dog star or Sirius, was in fact literally the very spirit of Osiris. Now recall that Osiris, the great father god of the pyramid and of Egypt, he was a god of death and of judgment. And so it is that wherever we find pyramids in the world, we also find mass graves of human beings. And when a pharaoh and his queen died, scholars say that the entire entourage, all of the royal servants, were also slain. So that in the next afterlife, the pharaoh and his queen were able to have servants in that spirit world as well.
Symbols reveal and they conceal. And that's why they're used and that's why they're so important. They reveal to those who have eyes to see and ears to hear. And they conceal from those who do not have the eyes to see or ears to hear.
In the book, Masonic and Occult Symbols Illustrated, we find this quote from Masonic author Charles G. Berger, who says that symbols came to have two meanings, the esoteric and the exoteric. The esoteric meaning was the true or original meaning, understood only by a few and closely guarded by them. The exoteric meaning was the invented or modified explanation intended for the many. This practice dates back to ancient Egypt and is explained by Dr. Robert Hieronymus, a member of a secret society called Co-Masonry, and author of the book Founding Fathers, Secret Societies.
As with all secret societies, you have levels, and if you're on the lower levels, you don't even know they're upper levels. They don't even tell you. You bump into it by accident or someone comes along. Now, in Scottish Rite, that's something different, because they know that there's a, but before then, and basically secret societies, let's go to ancient Egypt. To the ancient Egyptians, the priest would tell the serfs, the guys that tilled the land, they would say, the sun is God, okay? And so they accepted that very low-level interpretation, all physical. That's not what the priest believed. But the priest believed there was a second level. The priest believed that, no, the physical sun is not the supreme being. It's the spirit which flows through the physical sun that is the supreme deity. However, there was another level, and the priests didn't even know it. It's those that were involved and elevated to if I would have told you this 15 years ago, I might have gotten shot. But this is now, I'm so glad now that this is easy to talk about. The third level, which is a higher level of understanding, said, no, it's not. That's not the sun. The sun is not the supreme deity. No, yes, spiritual energies come through the sun. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is the star Sirius. The dog star, because the dog star was everything to the ancient Egyptians.
Hold on 1 second, guys. What this is here? Oh, I do the print there. You know, I don't even know where to get that. Okay, guys. Coming. Thank goodness this book is only 155 pages. I thought it was like 400 something, and I don't have a lot to show on Seventh-day Adventism. Okay. Chapter 1, Testimonies to My Character and Standing. As Seventh-day Adventists now make a desperate effort to break down my character and so destroy the influence of what I write, I will give a few testaments on this point. We, the undersigned, are acquainted with Reverend D.M. Canwright, who is residing in this village for the past 7 years. As a citizen, he is held in respect by the community, and in the moral character and Christian integrity, he stands above reproach. This is Oswego, Michigan, May 6, 1888. This is to certify that Reverend M.D. Canwright has been a faithful and efficient pastor for the past years, and that God, through him, has accomplished a glorious work for our church. He won the love and confidence of his people. We were glad to secure his service for another year, done by the church. Okay, Miss Ida M. Wheeler, clerk. I take pleasure in saying that I have known Reverend D.M. Canwright. I regard him as a man of most excellent gifts, as a preacher, studious, earnest, and efficient, that he has an unblemished character and is mentally worthy of the confidence and sympathy of ministers and people of all denominations. Mr. Canwright has long been known in the church as one of the very ablest ministers of the Advent Society. We published a letter from the revered gentleman this week. Mr. and Miss Canwright are held in the highest esteem by our whole people. This letter will be pleasant surprise to those crisis readers who have known Elder Canwright to be an able, zealous, and remarkably successful advocate of Seventh-day Adventism. Probably he has made more converts to that system in New England than any other person ever did or ever can. The Christian Oracle, Des Moines, Iowa, May 5th, 1887 says, "It is idle for Adventists to say that he is not the peer of any man that have ever had in their ranks. I have for a number of years been referred to Mr. Canwright as the man that could defend their doctrine against anything that I might bring against it. At the very mention of debate last summer in the city, he was the choice of all men who were heard to say anything on that side of the subject." The Christian Herald, Detroit, Michigan, April 28th, 1887 says, "Reverend D.M. Canwright was for many years one of the leading ministers among the Seventh-day Adventists, and until his change of denominational relationship, he was professor of biblical exegesis in the College of Battle Creek. He is the author of more than a score of books and pamphlets published in the interest of the denomination." The Adventists count Elder Canwright among their big guns. He having labored with the marked success as an evangelist in different parts of the country. Elder Canwright has labored as an evangelist in nearly every state in the Union and is a very popular lecturer. And there is what my Advent brethren thought of me when I left them. Battle Creek, Michigan, July 13th, 1881. "Brother Canwright, feel more interested in you than in any other man, because I know your worth when the Lord is with you as a laborer. I wish you could go to Madison, Wisconsin. We will go if you will, and will hold ourselves subject to your orders. James White." Battle Creek, Michigan, May 22nd, 1881. "It is time there was a battle. There was a change of the officers of the General Conference. I trust that if we are true and faithful, the Lord will please that you should constitute two of the board, James White." Battle Creek, Michigan, August 6th, 1884. "You have long been with us, and we all love you. G.I. Butler." Martingson, Neb, July 14th, Nebraska, 1884. "You were a power in the world and did a vast amount of good. We need your help in the work greatly. Your precious talent, if humble and fully consecrated to God, would be so powerful. There are so many places where it would be great help. G.I. Butler." "We have left exceedingly sad to the part in our religious connection with one whom we have long established as a dear brother." Advent Review, March 1887. "In leaving us, he has taken a much more manly and commendable course than most of those who have withdrawn from us, coming voluntarily to our leader brethren and frankly stating the condition of mind he was in. He did this because his own church in our presence, and so far as we know, has taken to underhanded means to injure us in any way. He goes from our midst with no immoral stain upon his character, and chooses association more pleasant to himself. This is every man's personal privilege if he chooses to take it." Advent Review, March 22nd, 1887. "It would be foolish for us to refuse to acknowledge his intellectual ability, his self-made scholarship, his tact or his energy while he was with us. I never knew him to misrepresent an opponent, for it was not necessary, and he left us with a fair reputation for the integrity. That is what I was for 28 years ago while with Adventists. By uniting with the Baptists, did I suddenly lose all of my sudden integrity in Christianity? Who will believe it? I leave the candid to judge. Brief summary of Larsons among Seventh-day Adventists. Brief summary of labors among Seventh-day Adventists. I was with them 28 years from 1859 to 1887 and preached for them 22 years. I labored among them in nearly all the states and territories where they had believed, from Maine to California and from Minnesota to Texas. About 1,000 persons have embraced the Sabbath under my labors, and 10 ministers are now preaching for them whom I brought into faith. I have organized many churches and several state conferences, assist in ordaining many of their ministers, have baptized hundreds, and was acknowledged to be among their most successful workers in new and hard fields. This they all know. I was chosen by them to meet their ablest opponents in discussion, having held 14 set debates. I was once one of the board of directors of the sanitarium, one of the trustees of the Battle Creek College, one of the faculties as teacher in biblical eisegesis, was president of a conference, member of a general conference committee, vice president of the International Sunday School Association, members of a state conference committee, associated editors of the Gospel Sickle, was generally on their most important committees in conference work, wrote extensively for all their papers, wrote 22 of their tracts, pamphlets, and books, which have been sold by the tens of thousands, and some of which have been translated into different languages. I was with the author of their present system of quarterly meetings or tithing and of Sabbath school collections. I say then without fear of contradiction that I understand that people of their doctrine and of their proofs for them with aims, character, and influence perfectly. What then do they say against my conduct while I was with them? Do they accuse me of any immoral or unchristian conduct? No, but they say I was vacillating for the last dozen years on account of my doubts. Exactly, and it was my doubts about their doctrine which made me so. But am I the only one who was troubled that way? No, many of their ministers have gone through the same trials that I have, and scores have left them as I did, while others have fixed it one and remains with them. Elder White himself had doubts. Mrs. White says of him he should make it a rule not to talk unbelief or discouragement. My husband has cherished this darkness so long by living over the unhappy past that he has but little power to control his mind when dwelling upon these things. Miss White herself was occasionally troubled with infidelity. She says, in the night I have awakened my husband, saying, I'm afraid that I shall become an infidel. Nearly all of their prominent ministers had their times of trial, and same as I did, when they ceased preaching and went at other work. Take, for instance, the case of Elder Uriah Smith, editor of the Review and the author of the ablest work. He had several periods of darkness, the same as myself. Hear his own confession that I have had in my experience occasional periods of trial. I do not deny there have been times when circumstances seemed very perplexing, when the way harmonized, apparently convicting, few did not at once appear, and under what have seemed to, for the time, strong provocations to withdraw from the work, I have canvassed the question how far this could reasonably be done, or how much of this work could consistently be surrounded. I have pondered the question whether this point was not inconsistent, or that absurd, or that other out of harmony with reason and revelation, and whether this feature ought not to be readjusted or others set aside entirely. This shows that the errors and absurdities of the system have troubled Elder Smith, and the same as they did me, but he had fixed it up, confessed, and gone again, just as I did and many others. But at last I broke away, and so may he. Nearly all their leading ministers have gone through a similar process. They would get into the dark, as they called it, and quit the work, flounder around a while, confess, and return to their old bondage again, while others would finally break away and leave them as I have. More ministers with leading talent have left them than they have within them today. They now report that I left them for our 4 or 5 times before and then went back. This is utterly false. From the time I joined them in 1859 till I withdrew in March 1887, I remained in good standing in the church. After I was licensed to preach in 1864, my credentials were renewed each year except 1 year when I was farming and did not ask for them. Till I left them last year, I never preached nor wrote against them, nor did I write with any other church, unite with any other church, nor teach any doctrine contrary to theirs. Let them deny any of these statements. If they can, they say, I may return to them. They know better. I would sooner burn at the stake. The moment I took my stand decidedly, that matter was settled forever. Okay, let's finish.
Di questa solenne ostensione, il mistero del sabato santo.
Your Holiness, your historic visit to St. Louis, Missouri has served as a catalyst in the creation of this program, and it transforms your presence into a lasting legacy for our region. Today, we present to you this proclamation announcing the creation of laws. Your commitment to improving interfaith relations has fostered an environment wherein the spirit of collective faith positively action and thrive. In addition, we also present you with this banner, the end of faith beyond walls. We hope and pray that it will inspire interfaith communities around the world to focus their efforts on improving health and the quality of life for all humanity. Again, we welcome you to our region.
This is Glenn Moore of Jubilee Countdown Ministries, and this is part 3, the occult Freemasonic origins of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Truths and counter-truths, flipping the truth on its head. Now, we've just seen evidence that the Catholic Church is going back and accepting the Sabbath as a holy day. But how can that be? And how is it that B.T. Rice would come and welcome the Pope to St. Louis, Missouri? B.T. Rice is a Seventh-day Adventist minister. And you say there must be something wrong here. Well, yeah, there's something wrong, but don't be confused. Don't get the idea that I did many years ago and think, oh, well, we were true from the beginning, but then we went into apostasy. No, I've already presented the evidence in the first 2 videos showing that Adventism was an apostasy from the very beginning. Now, I'm not saying everything they were teaching was false. In fact, it wouldn't make any sense to have a movement that didn't have some very important truths behind it. And don't take me for one of these cult bashers. No, everybody has their special definition of what a cult is. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you the proof, positive, in the very doctrines of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. One of the fundamental beliefs of Adventism. I'm going to show you where they come right out and essentially tell you that they are an extension and a part of the Roman Catholic Church. You think I'm crazy? Words have meaning, friends, and they know that, and they use that against you and against me. We have to learn to understand their code words, and we have to understand the language that they speak, which is a symbolic language. And I've showed you the evidence of that as well. Oh yes, you'll see it. It's very clear. And then I'm going to show you the testimony from Alberto Rivera, an ex-Jesuit priest who gave up on the Catholic Church and started exposing the inner workings of Catholicism. And you'll be very shocked at what he says concerning the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So here we go. Check it out. We're looking at it right now. It says the Universal Church. What does universal mean? Oh, come on. You don't know? Universal means Catholic. It's the same meaning. The Seventh-day Adventist Church has stated in their doctrine, fundamental beliefs, that they are a part of the Catholic Church.
There is more, but I will mention these three, the most important ones, in dealing with one special area, prophecy. They were assigned to deal especially with prophecy, with the purpose to do two things at least: to cover up any prophecy relate to the origin of the Antichrist, relate to the Antichrist, and relate to the papacy, relate to the Antichrist. And second, to cover up any idea that the Roman Catholic institution was never a Christian church, as I pointed out before. What that means is to make possible in Bible commentaries and church history that the Roman Catholic institution always will appear as a Christian church, fall in apostasy, and then we need a renewal. That was the idea that Rivera, Alcázar, and La Cruz tried to trace. Among other things, they tried to implement the idea that most of the prophecies of the book of Revelation were already fulfilled by the time of Nero. What that means is that don't worry about prophecies today. Don't worry about the Antichrist. Don't worry about a one-world government. Don't worry about nothing like that. Yes, that's correct.
The pressure for Sunday in the future is an issue. Is that a product of the Jesuits, or what do you know about that?
Well, what I know is this: that even the Seventh-day Adventist denomination has been placed under the greatest setup and a real setup of all the history of the denomination. How the denomination has been set up and their keeping of the Sabbath is this: the Roman Catholic institution already, and this is why you have Biocoki and some other elements within the denomination, there already has been even honor, and condecorated by the Vatican concerning their work. And actually, the Roman Catholic institution is preparing the greatest surprise of them all, because it's not going to be even Sunday that they are going to be after. It's going to be Saturday, and you will see why. The reason of this is when already Catholicism came about with the idea during the Vatican Council II that a Roman Catholic Mass that was only to be performed on Sundays as to be the only valid Mass for Roman Catholic. Even if they go any other day, Saturday, Friday, there was no valid a Mass for their obligations. Now, during the Vatican Council, the second session, suddenly the whole picture changed, and you know what for. The whole picture changed and said, now Saturday Mass is considered to be valid Mass as Sunday Mass. But that means not only that, more than that, Saturday Mass can replace Sunday Mass.
But it's the Protestants,
yes,
not the Jesuits that appear to be pushing for the Sunday, for national Sunday law.
Yes, actually, this is to trigger a reaction to really make you for a cover-up. The issue here is not even Saturday, is not even Sunday. The issue here, whether it's Saturday or Sunday, the issue here is the person of the Antichrist. You see, in matters of days, right now, the conflict is being utilized, the struggle between Saturday and Sunday is being utilized more for the benefit of Roman Catholicism than even for the benefit of the Christian Church. And that is how it has been exploited, to the point that already the Vatican approved, listen to this, approved the publication officially of Biocoki, and dealing with from his book called From Saturday to Sunday. Now, if the Vatican go as far as approving a publication as such, what do you think that is happening? They are trying to gain the sympathy, they are trying to gain the light, and they are trying to gain the entire denomination as they have gained the Pentecostal, as they have gained the Protestants through different other issues. Nevertheless, they touch every other issue except the real issue. Through any other issues, like the tongues business, the charismatic gift, you see, they are dealing with their things where nobody can see what is behind. In other words, they cannot openly see any evil because you will see the Vatican as a good in a good position, a renewal position, say, yes, we recognize that we did wrong, we changed from Saturday to Sunday, and we admit this, and we're going to do something about it. The Vatican Council did it. You see, we are going to incorporate now officially the Mass on the day of Sabbath. You do not see that the issue in prophecy is one day or the other. The issue in prophecy is more than a day. Is more than a day. The issue in prophecy is who and where is the Antichrist now.
Papacy went about in changing the Sabbath to Sunday. Then I received a special diploma. You know why? I refused to accept the first diploma. When I looked at the first diploma, which was a small piece of paper, in the opening statement, I saw it read that I had signed the Catholic profession of faith, which was not true. I received a special dispensation. They exempted me from signing the Catholic creed and from attending the religious exercise. But when I looked at the diploma, it says Samuele Bacchiocchi, subscription, professio fide cattolica. I told them, this cannot be my diploma. I have never signed the Catholic creed. The diploma is the same for everybody. We have only inserted your name. That cannot be the same for me. If I go back to America and hang my diploma, what will people think? Don't worry about it. The diploma is in Latin. The Americans don't understand Latin. Why make any show about it? No, I said, I'm not prepared to compromise. So they gave the assignment to a Vatican scribe to prepare this beautiful diploma. It's much nicer than the one of Andres University. Isn't it true? This is in parchment. And it is all written by hand, decorated by hand, given in the name and the authority of Pope Paul VI and signed by a number of distinguished Vatican authority. And folks, let me tell you, when this is all, let me hold a second. When I received the diploma and the special gold coin, I was reminded of my father's words. When my father used to tell me, stand up for what you know to be right, God's truth, God will honor your commitment. I also received a special academic regalia. Some of you may have seen me wearing it a few times. I think I wore it 4 times in 26 years of teaching at Andrews. I don't like to wear the outfit. I feel very uncomfortable because I look like a bishop. If you have never seen what an Adventist bishop looks like, this is a picture of one. Well, because of all the negative.
As we can see and hear from Alberto Rivera, the Adventist Church has been taken over, friends, and they're being set up for the great final deception. Now, you might think, well, I'm going to condemn them for keeping the Sabbath. That would be crazy since I also keep the Sabbath. The Bible clearly teaches the Sabbath. Anyone who says otherwise is ignorant of Scripture. However, they have some misunderstandings concerning the law. They think that the Ten Commandments constitutes the law. No, the law is the Torah, the first 5 books of Moses. And it's not a law. Torah means teaching. And the purpose of the teaching is to bring us into a right relationship with Yahweh, our Heavenly Father. So in Matthew 5, when Messiah says he did not come to do away with the law or the prophets, he's talking about the Torah, which includes the 10 Commandments, which includes the 4th commandment. Yes, absolutely. However, here's the problem. Adventism is built upon 4 false pillars, 4 false teachings, which only bring confusion to the whole issue. What I've come to realize is that if you take those 4 false teachings out of Adventism, you can get very close to the true message that Yahweh is sending us. And also, however, the 4 false teachings tend to be exactly opposite of where the true teaching lies. Anyway, teaching number 1, 1844 as a fulfillment of the 2300-day prophecy. I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but nothing of any significance happened in 1844. A prophecy that tells you something is going to happen, and then you say, well, it didn't happen here, it happened in heaven. That's just an excuse. The prophecy was not fulfilled. Let's get that settled in our mind now. It's been proven. For many, many years, people have proven it. I'll give you some information here, links, show you. Do the research yourself, and you'll find that it's true. However, it is also true that Messiah is coming soon to redeem his people and to set up his kingdom for 1,000 years. And of course, the Adventists would have you believe, and this is not one of the four major ones, but the Adventists would have you believe that when Messiah comes, we're going to go to heaven. It's not true. When Messiah comes, we're going to be with him. Zechariah very clearly, and other prophecies as well, teaches that Messiah is going to come and set up his kingdom on this earth, and we'll have 1,000 years of peace. Oh, it's going to be bad. I'm not denying that. There's many, many millions and possibly billions of people that are going to die because of all the deception and because of the evil in this world. But through it all, his people are going to be saved. It's not the end of the world, it's the end of this age. So while they're focused on going to Orion, what they don't realize is that that is a deception. That is heresy that comes from Egyptian mythology, which has been incorporated into the Masonic lodges. And then they have the pyramid symbol. It's right there. The pyramid symbol is the symbol for the Illuminati and the coming of their kingdom, which they're attempting to set up, and will be using lying signs and wonders from heaven to deceive people. So the Adventists say, oh, we shouldn't accept a false Messiah, and the only way we're going to know the Messiah is real is because we'll be seeing him coming from the heavens like lightning going from the east to the west. Well, I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but they have the technology to make it appear like Messiah is coming in the clouds of heaven, and you will see him and you will hear him and you will think that it's real. Don't be deceived, friends. The other doctrine they have is the one called the cleansing of the sanctuary. And they believe that Messiah did not complete his work when he was here, but that there was a cleansing necessary to begin in 1844. I'm sorry, but Scripture is lacking in this teaching also. There is no support for such a teaching. However, there is a sanctuary. And yes, there's a sanctuary in heaven. What we have on the earth, the original sanctuary was the temple. And the temple was built after the pattern of a man, and also after the pattern of Yahweh, because we're created in his image. The purpose of the temple has always been, and always will be, to teach us how to live, just like the feast were given to us to teach us about life. It begins in conception with Passover, and it ends in tabernacles. Everything there is descriptive of the birthing process. That's what it's for. It's not so we can be concerned about our records in heaven and looking up to the sanctuary in heaven to cleanse the sanctuary. We are the sanctuary. Hello? We need to be cleansing our physical, mental, and spiritual bodies, just like they illustrated with the sanctuary that was here on this earth over 2,000 years ago. Messiah said, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will build it back up. They didn't understand what he was saying either. He was talking about the temple of his body. What people don't realize is, and this is where they're confused, we are the temple, and it applies to us as well. Another confusing doctrine within Adventism, one of these four pillars, is the teaching that Ellen White is a prophet and that she fulfills the prophecies of Revelation concerning the spirit of prophecy. There's just one problem with, well, actually, there's several problems with it. First of all, her prophecies, many of her prophecies did not come to pass. I mentioned one of them already concerning the majestic race of beings that live on Saturn. Hello? You know that there is no life on Saturn, correct? Okay, that's just one example. There are others. But the biggest problem of all with the spirit of prophecy concept is that it's the opposite of what they claim it to be. According to Joel chapter 2, in the last days, many people are going to have dreams and visions. Not just one person, and certainly not one person enthroned at the head of a hierarchical structure, which is Adventism, so that only their words can be accepted. Oh, I was an Adventist for many years, and I can assure you that anyone who tried to present a different view about anything, even if it was minor, oh, that's not acceptable. They have to check that with Ellen White. We have to ask the question, what does Ellen White say, or they call it the spirit of prophecy? And the problem is that when you do that, you're limiting yourself. You're saying that the words of Ellen White have a higher position. And finally, let's talk about the remnant church. Well, you might think I'm going to try to shoot down this whole idea of a remnant, but that's not true. The Bible does talk about a remnant, but it says in the prophecy, the remnant of her seed. And who is her? Her is the woman. What does the woman represent? The woman represents Israel and always has. So there is a seed of Israel, a remnant, and they're scattered all over the world. But you see the problem. They're trying to confine the remnant to a church when in reality the remnant is scattered everywhere. The remnant are those who remain faithful to Yahweh and keeping his commandments and having the testimony of Yeshua. They're the remnant. And they could be next door and you don't even know it. They're not a church organization, okay? Nowhere in the Bible does it talk about that. Do a search of the word remnant. You will find that it means those who remain. It's not talking about a church organization. Show me in the scripture where it does. So you see, right from the beginning, Adventism is built upon these four false pillars. And those pillars have to come down in your mind because we're at the end. If we don't break away from all deception, we're going to be very likely lost. And Messiah is going to have to say to us, I'm sorry, I don't know who you are, because your character is so far out of line from what you should be. As the bride of Messiah, we should be preparing ourselves for his coming, not worrying about an investigative judgment going on in heaven, looking at our records to see if we're good enough. It almost sounds like Santa Claus. Not worrying about whether we retain our membership in an apostate church that supposedly thinks that it's the remnant. Not worrying about whether we have the correct understanding of 1844, supposedly fulfilling the prophecy of Daniel 8:14. And not worrying about whether Ellen White is a true prophet and submitting ourselves to every little nuance that she may have to say, instead of looking at Yahweh's word and listening to his spirit to know whether it's truth or not. Yes, the Torah is still there. It is in effect. It hasn't been done away with. The purpose of the Torah is to teach us his ways. And in the process of teaching us his ways, we're going to make mistakes, but we focus on Messiah. And while you might be tempted to put the label on Adventists of being a cult, let me tell you something. This whole world, it seems, is a death cult. And I've got some news for a lot of you out there that think that you're on the road that leads to life. When Messiah came, very soon after his coming, within less than a century, his teachings were twisted around and distorted. And then we had the roots of what became later known as Christianity. You can look at the New Testament from the beginning to the end, and you will see no evidence that our Messiah ever set up a new religion called Christianity. His purpose was to bring salvation, but the focus of his ministry was the preaching of the good news of the coming kingdom, a kingdom that's coming very soon. His purpose was to bring salvation, that's true, and he did. But because the Jews rejected that, he gave it to others to bring that message to the world, and they did. But later on, things got twisted around, and then Constantine set up a new religion called Christianity, a church-state alliance. No, Babylon is a whole lot bigger, friends, than the Catholic Church. I can assure you that in the coming presentations, I'm going to really hit the nail on the head about this, because the whole world has been deceived, even those who believe that they're following Messiah. We need to repent. We need to humbly come before him and surrender our hearts to him. And as we look to Messiah, also recognizing that the purpose of his Torah was to teach us. It is Messiah in you, the hope of glory.
Okay, that's it. That did have some interesting content, didn't it? The last one was a little bit off. Hi, Tinkle Tank. The last one got a little bit crazy, but the first two, I mean, how many people make that Masonic sign in a picture? Like 7 people? That's crazy. I don't believe 7 people made the Masonic hand symbol accidentally. The other thing about her telling the Mason to leave and using Masonic signs, and then he went back to Masonry and got people to fund the Seventh-day Adventist Church publications. Interesting. And the symbolism, interesting. The pyramid, interesting. Yeah. Anyway, guys, I'm going to go. I'll talk to you later. Bye.